Good evening, folks. Welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Backroad In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR show. With you, as usual, myself, Elliot Hicks, and Seth Woolcock. And this week, we've got a special guest. It's Cody Powers at Natter Day Delight from the Left Turn Cult. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Cody. Happy you're here, man. Honestly, I think we should get rid of Jared's picture on the intro and get Cody's. Might be a little better looking.
I support this.
You don't have to see any of that darn Kyle Busch gear on there either.
How about it?
Just some Pred stuff. Totally out of place.
Nothing wrong with the sport of hockey, but we're not here to talk hockey. We are here to talk NASCAR. So let's fire off with In the Rear View. So the two most recent races in the NASCAR Cup Series, which you can see right here, NASCAR Cup Series, was at Las Vegas and Phoenix. We'll start with Las Vegas, where the same effing guy backed into another effing win, Alex Bowman, with the victory there after a race that was dominated by Ross Chastain in a lot of ways. We looked like Kyle Busch, Martin Truex were going to get the win, but it was, again, that same effing guy who backs into every effing win that he ever effing gets. Alex Bowman that took the win here. We already know my thoughts on this win. Seth and Cody, we'll start with you, Seth. Your thoughts on the Vegas race?
Welcome back racing, man. Welcome back rivalries, bad blood in this sport. I love it. I mean, there's been an AAU culture going on in NASCAR the last couple of years. They all party together. They hang out during the off season together. But welcome back, man. I mean, Bowman, hats off to him and his pit crew making that call, getting them out in front there. And I'm just excited, man. This car really proves that anyone can win. And, it's sad in terms of fantasy for the rowdy managers. But, at the end of the day, man, I think the best car won. So that was pretty exciting.
This was our first test at a true, genuine intermediate, right? Las Vegas is always a boring race. In my opinion, I think that race was anything but boring. It was incredible. Great passing. You didn't see one guy get out and just lead by 6 seconds the entire day. It was exciting. My personal opinion on Alex Bowman is you have to be there. You have to put yourself in contention for a win. He can lead one lap every race. And as long as it's the checkered flag lap, what does it matter? A win is a win.
Right. And we used to call Kevin Harvick the closer. I think Alex Bowman maybe could have a run at that nickname, the closer. But the great thing about Vegas, you didn't see a guy get a big lead. You also got to see some passing. I think it was Vegas or maybe it was Vegas or Kansas the one year in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Harvick and Logano, I think it was. Maybe you guys can jog my memory. Where those two were racing for the lead. It looked like the guy in second had the faster car, but just the way the air worked out with the old 550 horsepower package, just could not make that pass. That's not a thing anymore. We get to see real, genuine NASCAR racing, I feel like, with this car in this package. And if Vegas didn't convince us, I think Phoenix sure did, that anybody can win. This race was pretty well dominated by guys who had never won a Cup race before. We saw Ross Chastain up front again. We saw Tyler Reddick up front. We saw guys like Blaney up front. We saw Larson have some troubles, which was kind of nice. We didn't have to see him dominate another race at Phoenix. And it ended up in Chase Briscoe's first win, taking the Stewart-Haas Racing number 14 to victory lane. And Cody, we'll start with you this time. I'll be honest. We did nothing but crap on Stewart-Haas Racing basically all last year. The fact that they're able to pick up a win this early in the season, got to be good for them.
It's a huge deal for Stewart-Haas Racing. I think they've shown a decent amount of speed so far. I mean, Eric Almirola going into this race was the only driver with the top 10s in each race before. Cole Custer's ran well. He's had some equipment issues that's prevented him from finishing a couple. And Kevin Harvick has just consistently been there. I'm not worried at all this season now about Stewart-Haas with the way that they're starting to perform. Chase Briscoe, I love him. I've loved him since his Xfinity days. I don't know how anybody can root against Chase Briscoe. But Stewart-Haas Racing, they were also on my crap list last year too. Just a disappointing year, right? Coming off of 11 wins the season before and having 0 or 1 last year.
Eric Almirola.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. But I think things are looking up for the Ford camp as a whole going for the rest of the season.
The other huge takeaway here, I think, is we're seeing this young group of drivers, the 2020 Xfinity drivers. I watched a lot of Xfinity during COVID, and I think a lot of us did. And we saw the talent in Ross Chastain, in Austin Cindric, in Chase Briscoe, and they moved it to the next level, man. And it's been awesome to see. And I feel like this is the first time I can really say we have a good young crop of competitive drivers since like Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney kind of took the sport by storm, 5, 6, 7 years ago at this point.
Yeah, this certainly has been the best year to be a rookie as people anticipated. Well, Briscoe's not a rookie, a second-year guy. We'll count some of these guys as rookies, though. 2020 and 2020 run so messed up. There was no practice for most of these events. But to see these young guns get into victory lane, this really is the year where anyone can win. Well, we were talking about the upswing potentially of Stewart-Haas Racing compared to where they were this time last year. Just how good are they, though? Let's find out in this week's Tire Tiers. So if you've watched us so far, you're familiar with this concept now. Each of us on the show, the three of us, and Jared also submitted rankings this week as he has in the past. So 5 tiers of 6 drivers as to who we rank as the best in the Cup Series right now. We'll start with tier number 1. We've got Ryan Blaney taking over the top spot. The last 2 weeks, or the last 2 ones, we'd had unanimous number 1 in Kyle Larson. He has moved down to the 2 spot now. Then we have Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Elliott. My thoughts in these tier 1 guys, these are all pretty much as we would have expected coming into the year. I think that a guy like Reddick, we just can't on this guy. I genuinely is going to be a tier 1, maybe even top tier 2 driver for the rest of the season. I'm that high on Reddick and how this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elliot. I think we came in 2 weeks ago, our last show, and Rod had Tyler Reddick ranked as a tier 1 driver. You had him ranked as a tier 1 driver. I was a little bit hold the horses. I wanted to see more of it. We saw that at Las Vegas. We saw that at Phoenix from Tyler Reddick. I think he's a driver 1. My biggest complaint with this, and I think the argument you can make it for Ryan Blaney as that top driver, he's led the most laps this season. He has, tied for the most top 5s this season as well. But Larson was on track for a top 10, possibly another top 5, which would have gave him 3. So I still think, Kyle Larson's at 101 at the end of the day. Cody, what's your thoughts on this top tier, man?
So far into this season, I don't think that Larson should be in the tier 1. A lot of people think I'm crazy. But I don't think we're going to see that same level of dominance for Kyle Larson. And certainly I don't think we've seen it so far this year. Of course, he had a great day at California, but I do not see us seeing the same level of competition out of Larson. I have Eric Almirola as a tier 1 right now.
I saw that. That was a pretty hot take up there, man.
It was, but I don't know. And I'm not sure that Chase Elliott's there either so far.
Chase Elliott, we'll talk about it, I think, more a little bit later, but I had Chase Elliott leading off that tier 2 group for sure. I agree with you on that one. He's been disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, Chase is definitely teetering a little bit, which is a nice transition into the tier 2 drivers. It was very close between Chase and the top driver in tier 2, Kevin Harvick. Then we have Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, Eric Almirola, Alex Bowman, and William Byron. All right, Cody, so make your case for Almirola. He's here in the mid-tier, tier 2. Why is he a tier 1 guy? Is he going to stay there?
I absolutely think he's going to stay there. I think I kind of covered it a little while ago. We're going to see a very, very, very powerful Ford camp for the rest of the season. I think Stewart-Haas has already figured some things out. Eric Almirola is genuinely just a great race car driver. He's shown consistency throughout his whole career. The guy's been in the playoffs countless times. Might not be a winner every single week, and he might not be that guy who's competing for a win, but you can always guarantee that Eric Almirola is going to be there in the top 10 consistently. And you could say that more so for him than a guy like Joey Logano, for example. Joey Logano can get you several wins throughout the year, but he's going to make some bonehead decisions that ends up costing him a race or two in clutch moments. I think that Eric Almirola just 5-head energy puts Eric Almirola in the tier 1 category.
Man, I think one of the biggest takeaways from this entire tier is welcome back SHR. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, guys, but this team has had a total turnaround here in 2022. Kevin Harvick's had some really lousy starting positions. A lot of people have kind of ate him up in DFS. He's kind of been the chalk the last couple weeks with that low starting position. But I mean, Chase Briscoe, It comes out, he gets that win, and Eric Almirola has been super consistent. I think he was 13th this last week too. So he's getting consistent points. He's been one of the fantasy NASCAR underdogs, one of the unsung heroes this year. So welcome back, SHR. And I love seeing my guy Ross Chastain up there in the top 8 as well. That puts a smile on my face, Elliot.
Yeah, I was just about to say with Chastain, I'm just as on board with him as I am with Reddick. I think that those two are both guys who really haven't been looked at, obviously, as guys who are going to be dominant before, mostly because of their limited Cup experience. I think that they're guys who are set up to really dominate this series for years to come. And it's surprising because Trackhouse, still only a second-year team.
Yeah.
This is their first year on their own. Last year, RCR was prepping all their cars. They took the assets from Chip Ganassi Racing, which obviously helped them a lot. But for this team to be performing this well, and could if things had gone a different way, we could be sitting here saying with Chastain that he's got 2 wins in a row and has been the most dominant driver in the series, which I think is shocking for a team just in its second year.
Love it. Absolutely love it, man. It's great to see. And like we'll talk about it more later, but even just to hear the excitement from that camp, just for getting second these last couple weeks, he was generally thrilled. He did not care that he didn't win. And that's what I love about Ross Chastain. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And he's going to get that win this year. I guarantee it.
I wouldn't doubt that at all for sure. Moving on to Tier 3, super interesting crop of 6 that we got here, led off by the number 3 car of Austin Dillon. Then we got Daniel Suarez, Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, Austin Cindric, and Martin Truex Jr. I, for one, am shocked that we have 2 Joe Gibbs cars here in Tier 3. Shocked. Well, not that shocked. The 11 car and the 19 car, the performances just haven't been there. I think with Truex, it's more of a case of bad luck. With the 11 car, obviously he's had some bad luck, but just a shocking downfall from Denny Hamlin after where he was 2 years ago to last year, where he only really performed super duper well in the playoffs, getting those wins, despite some consistency in the regular season. It just hasn't been there this year. And I'm starting to wonder, I believe I may have mentioned this in the last show as well. We've seen drivers take a bit of a downswing as they go later into their career. And I'm much more worried now that this is where Denny Hamlin is heading in the future.
I'm just going to say this before we go any further. Yes, it's been a bad start to the season for Denny Hamlin. Maybe he has lost a step. Martin Truex, I think you touched on it, Elliot. Bad luck. But realistically, when I was looking at some of these ranks, I think Cody and Jared maybe drank a little too much of Cody's homemade lager. You know what I mean? They might have drank too much lager when they were doing this ranks and were just pissed at Denny Hamlin and Truex for the poor performances. I think these are still both Tier 1, Tier 2 guys. Denny Hamlin, I think he's the end of Tier 2. I think Martin Truex, he's the end of Tier 1. But, these guys are consistently at least have some speed. Denny Hamlin has been a little concerning. But I think, as low as Cody and Jared had these guys ranked, I'm a little surprised. I think they're still good drivers.
I want the record to show that I entirely left Martin Truex forward. I actually plugged Corey LaJoie in. Am I the first one to ever throw Corey LaJoie onto the tier list?
So LaJoie has been on the tier list before, and he's again this week. He's in the sort of receiving votes category. Him and the 16 car were the 2 that got some votes that didn't make it this week.
The whole time I filled this out, I felt like I was forgetting someone big. Sorry, Martin.
Jared did the same thing.
I guess that's metaphorical for the way his season has been so far. It's pretty forgettable. As far as Denny Hamlin goes, I don't think anybody should be worried of is Denny Hamlin coming off the peak of his prime? I don't think that's the case at all. I think that this season we're going to see manufacturer issues over team specific issues. So I think that it's just been a rough start for Toyota in general. I don't put any blame on the drivers themselves. Kyle Busch has had a great season so far, but he's been the only consistent Toyota this season. So I blame Toyota. We have 3 Toyotas right here in Tier 3.
Let's be honest though. If we were doing a redraft today, would you guys be comfortable taking any of those Tier 2 guys, outside of, Briscoe and all those guys? I think before him, we're taking above Hamlin right now. But are you actually taking Almirola, the Hendricks guys, Austin Dillon, Suarez before Denny Hamlin?
I took Harvick and Blaney both before Denny Hamlin.
Elliot,
I think that's fair. Harvick and Blaney before Hamlin. I would say, I'm not as high on Almirola. I probably would leave Bowman and Byron behind only because of their inconsistencies. I think that the Hendrick cars are more talented than Gibbs right now. Yeah, I think this is probably a little low for Hamlin. But I mean, I had him ranked tier 3 too, so I got to defend my argument, and probably should have a better one for why I ranked him.
The big thing I'll say right now as a fantasy NASCAR analyst is I'm looking at this board, whether I'm playing in redraft right now or DFS. Denny Hamlin is someone I'm going to be targeting these next couple weeks. The rostership percentage is going to be very low in DraftKings and FanDuel, and then also in redraft he's going to slide a little bit too. So whatever you're doing, I'm targeting Denny Hamlin, I think, moving forward at this value at least.
Yeah, and we know that he's ridiculously competitive. He's got that fire in him. He's going to want to get that fire lit under his ass to really start rolling, and I think that these could be a next good couple of races for Denny Hamlin. We'll talk a little more about that later.
Yes, sir.
Coming up. In terms of tier 4, though, or wait, tier 3, I wanted to give a shout out real quick to Austin Dillon. We've been heaping all this praise on Reddick, saying he's, the next thing since sliced bread, the next great NASCAR star. All this benefits Austin Dillon, too. He's always been a relatively consistent driver. He's been one of those guys that's gotten crapped on, saying, he's only there because of his grandfather and he's got the silver spoon, blah, blah, blah. He's put up decent performances, too. And I think that this next-gen car and RCR really being one of the forefront leaders of the next-gen development has really helped him out, too. And having a guy like Reddick to bounce ideas off of, going to help that 3-car, too.
Yeah, shout out to Austin Dillon fantasy managers because they got absolutely screwed over with the Suarez crash on the last lap. I saw a couple fantasy managers tweeting out their frustration, man. I feel that one. I had him a couple lineups as well.
Brutal. He got spun not only in the last lap, last turn of the last lap.
Yeah.
Ran so consistent all day. I do want the record to show that was Kyle Busch's fault.
Okay.
All right.
No defense here. You don't got Parv and Jared on this one, buddy.
They're going to be coming back to get us, though, for all this Kyle Busch slander.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now we'll move on to tier 4, where we've got Chris Buescher, Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Christopher Bell, and Cole Custer. And there's one thing here that sticks out to me more than anything else, and it's that Eric Jones is ranked ahead of Christopher Bell. You remember it was Eric Jones in that 20 car. They bumped Matt Kenseth out of that ride early to bring in Jones. They threw Jones out of that ride to bring in Bell. And yet it has been Eric Jones in the Petty GMS car that has really outrun and outshone Christopher Bell this year. And again, part of that, it's been some bad luck on the Toyota side. He had mechanical issues in some of these races. But I don't think anyone can argue that I think Jones, by and large, has outdrove Christopher Bell. And that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, this whole tier is like the underperformers in my eyes, at least. Like Brad Keselowski, Chris Bell, we kind of had high expectations for all these guys. If there is one overperformer, I guess it's Eric Jones. I think Ty Dillon's still a better driver. I think he's been better this season. I think I'll defend that case later on as much as I know Cody's snarking down there. I don't know if he believes that one, but yeah, I mean, I think overall these are just underperformers other than Eric Jones, who has exceeded expectations.
I think that during halftime at NASCAR races, we should have Brad Keselowski and Ty Dillon run the demo derby in the infield. I don't think that Ty Dillon is a better driver than Eric Jones by any means. I think Eric Jones is an absolute will man. And he's starting to show, I think the GMS and Petty combination, I think that's put a lot more money and a whole lot more momentum into that team. And I think we're starting to see it. And I'm not saying Ty Dillon's not great or a good driver. I mean, all the guys can outdrive me at the end of the day. But I think that Eric Jones, I think he could end up with a win this season. I think it's totally possible at a place like Darlington.
I like that call. Cody. I like that.
Sure. And remember I think it was the last iRacing Pro Invitational race that we had. Who was in victory lane in the next gen iRacing car at Darlington? Yep. Eric Jones. Yep. Nobody remembers that but the two of us, I bet you, considering right after that they canceled it and are not going to run it anymore on TV.
We got some Eric Jones stands on the pod, baby. We got some Eric Jones stands. I haven't heard.
It's a crazy turn for me. I used to not be able to stand him.
I rode that wave. He was like my one driver that I really effed with in 2019, and then kind of just went downhill pretty quickly for him. But I still got some Eric Jones love. Ty Dillon though, man, give him a shot.
Yeah, we'll give him a shout here in a moment. I wanted to make one point on Toyota though, real quick. I think that it's interesting that Toyota, you've got all these different teams that are running Chevys. You've got all these different teams that are running Fords. Toyota really has everything in one place. They have the Joe Gibbs racing cars, and then 2311, obviously, super heavily affiliated. I don't know that Toyota is going to be running out there trying to get more teams bumped in them, but it could help to have, not that Chevy and Ford do this, but you have a couple of cars there that you could run some different stuff on, see what happens, and it won't really be a big deal because they were going to run 25th anyway, so who cares?
Good
So
point.
that's a great point.
That's more of a long-term strategy. I don't know that it's got no fantasy implications other than these mechanical problems we've been seeing from Toyotas, but something to think about as the future goes along here in the Cup Series. All right, our fifth and final tier has another Toyota in Bubba Wallace, Ty Dillon, who we've been heaping some praise on here, Justin Haley in the 31, Todd Gilliland making his first appearance in our ranks, Harrison Burton, and Michael McDowell. All right, well, do we want to start by continuing the Ty Dillon praise, or where do we want to roll with our tier fives?
I will touch on Ty Dillon later on in another segment. We'll save that, but I will say Bubba's another one who belongs in tier 4. Like, honestly, I'm taking him above a lot of these tier 4 guys right now. I mean, he hasn't had the greatest start position. He's averaging a 23rd overall start, but he's average finish 17th. That's better than a lot of these drivers out there, including those tier 2 and tier 1 guys. So I think Bubba Wallace has kind of drove himself pretty well so far this season. He had, Eric Jones wrecked him here at Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. That kind of takes down that average. But other than that, man, Bubba's been impressive. He's kind of just hung towards the back and then made his way steadily improving throughout the race. So I think Bubba, if there's one takeaway here, but Bubba's a wheelman. I like him a lot going forward. And Todd Gilliland, man, DFS hero these last couple of weeks, man. Like, people have been throwing him in. He's under 5% rostered every single week, and he is getting you 30 DFS points with the diff points. So Todd
His
Gilliland,
differential is insane. All season, it's been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had him in tier 3 for that specific reason.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I did.
I'm pretty sure that's the only reason he made it in is because you had him ranked so highly. So
yeah, you're welcome, Todd. You're welcome.
You might expect some merch in the mail next week, Cody, from Todd.
Yeah, I need it. Bubba, as a Bubba fan, it pains me every single week, but I think we're starting to see a lot of like equal comparison now. Kurt Busch is running in the same positioning as Bubba. They're running mid to back of the pack throughout the whole race. Now Kurt Busch is pulling it out in the last 5 laps and getting top 10 somehow, some way. It's crazy how his car just comes to life in the last 10 laps of every race. But you're starting to see Bubba finally has somebody to be compared to, right? He's never had a teammate in the Cup Series. So now we're starting to see it. So, I mean, we're seeing that Bubba's equipment isn't as great as everybody was making it out to be by any means. So I'm not worried about Bubba. I think Bubba's going to continue to grow and continue to develop.
Yeah, and one thing that's affected some finishing positions that we really haven't, I know I haven't really incorporated this in my rankings, is that there's been a restart within the last 10 laps, and I think every one of our races this season. So that's really affected things. Kurt Busch, I think, finished 5th. I don't know how the hell that happened.
Yeah, and this was the first race that Bubba finished with a right front fender.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a fun little stat, but it's true.
That's interesting. It is good.
The two things in this tier, this has been the car. These have been the races for these rookies and these second-year drivers. But we're still waiting on these jumps from Justin Haley and Harrison Burton. We know that these are competitive rides. We saw a guy like DiBenedetto run pretty well in this 21. Harrison Burton's a more talented driver than Matt DiBenedetto really ever was. No insult to Matty D. I'm sure he's down in the truck series there with Rackley War. And Colleague being a new Cup team, we don't quite know what to expect with them. These are some guys that if you run your fantasy leagues like our, offline Discord fantasy league that we have with Jared, if you're picking up guys, for the next 3 or 4 races, these are your guys that you want to buy low on, I think, because they're the next ones to break out, I feel like, when they can start to get some consistency, get some confidence, get some good runs under their belt. I think these guys have just as much of a chance to be there week in and week out as, maybe not quite to the level of the 8 and the 1, but certainly to the level of like the second-tier Trackhouse cars or an Eric Jones to be able to jump up there. So that could be interesting to watch.
Can I ask a question? Is it fair to take Brad over Harrison when Brad ruins Harrison's day more than Harrison does?
Man, Harrison has looked like cheeks, though. He has not looked good these last couple of weeks. Like, they've barely given him any airtime on Fox, too, though. That's been half the issue. So.
He's had a lot of really bad luck, just terrible luck. 2 weeks in a row, though, Brad wrecked him.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'll say, though, man, Justin Haley's been consistent, too. Like, I've plugged him into a couple DFS lineups. And don't forget, he was top 5 in last time Circuit of the America ran in the Xfinity Series as well. So I think Justin Haley's a really nice person to target here. heading into these last couple races, whatever, format of fantasy league you're playing in. I like Haley, man. He's like one of those other drivers like Ross Chastain I've just really like kind of gravitated to over the years.
Yeah, that could be interesting. We do have a couple of interesting tracks coming up. We won't quite get there just yet. We got a couple of segments where we pick out some individual drivers that we want to talk about. First off, with, I believe, our debut of Draft or Pass.
5.5 now, quarter, half, 5, 75, sold your way, 65
That's
and a
pretty
half.
cool.
21, Andy Rock, 21, Rockstar.
All right, well, correct me that I'm wrong. That's not our debut because I do remember that awesome video drop for it. Shout out to our video guy, Third and Mike Short for that one. Definitely pretty cool. So I've picked out 3 drivers. It looks like we all had the consensus of these were the guys we wanted to roll with Draft or Pass. Funny enough, they're all guys we probably talked a little too much about and not saving for this segment.
Yeah.
But I know we always got some stuff to talk about. The first guys here on Draft or Pass is Martin Truex Jr. in the number 19. Are we drafting him or are we passing on him? Seth, we'll start with you.
I'm smashing the draft button here, guys. I mean, there's a couple of reasons. Again, he has had some bad luck here. He looked pretty good at Daytona. He looked good earlier in the season. Just some bad luck coming his way. And I just love rooting for Martin Truex Jr. Is there a better guy to root for right now? Great feel-good story right now with his girlfriend battling ovarian cancer. You got to love that. Another story just came out this week, too, that he actually tattooed his number on his number 19 on Hardy, the country music singer, using another country music singer's tattoo gun. So another cool story there. But I mean, overall, I think moving forward, Martin Truex Jr. is a guy you want on your fantasy rosters. Since 2019, he's averaging a finish position of 4.3 here at this next track coming up, Atlanta. And then he did get taken out pretty early in the wild rain race last year of COTA, but keep an eye for him at COTA as well because he is kind of a road course ringer too. Very low key though.
I am going to pass on Martin Truex Jr. for the next couple of races. And we can talk about COTA. A road course coming up. He's always been that guy that we think of for a road course, right? He's not won at a road course since 2019, and he's barely had any top 10s since then. So, I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind. We don't even know how these cars are going to look on a road course, and that's like the scary part about this.
That is crazy, yeah.
It's terrifying, but I'm going to pass on Martin Truex. Plus Atlanta, I don't know that we're going to see a dominant Truex until we hit our short track run.
Average finish of 4th, Cody, only behind Rowdy.
Totally new track.
All right.
Atlanta, the crazy thing is Atlanta is supposed to race more like a super speedway with this package. So that's going to be super interesting when we get to talk about that here in a little bit. I'm really back and forth on this. There's good reasons to draft. There's good reasons to pass. Ultimately, I'm going to pass on these races because he's going to be higher valued. I would rather pick up a whole bunch of sleepers in that lineup and try to get the big bucks and go with a guy like Truex at a high value and then have him, even if he performs to that value or even a little below it, maybe even a little above it, how good really is it? Because I still think he's in that upper echelon, even though we didn't have him in tier 1 in our section. I think that the big fantasy brokers, things like that, he's going to be a tier 1 level driver for them. And I just don't think he's worth that right now.
Yeah, you're probably right, Elliot. He's going to be, probably 10,000 plus, at least 9,000, high 9,000s here on DraftKings in the next couple of weeks. So I understand you wanting to fade him there. It does make sense, but I mean the history on these tracks, I do like that coming up. But I respect your guys' decision. I'll be the one drafting him. Hopefully, there's more people like you guys passing on him.
Yeah, you'll be the one to laugh in our faces probably. If it goes well, and if not, then we got you back anyway. All right, so our second draft or pass driver is Austin Dillon in that number 3 car. And for sort of the same reasons that I talked about, I think he's going to be a little lower value than we expect. So I think I'm going to draft him. I'm going to bet on that the RCR upswing is going to continue, even though he may not quite lead a whole bunch of laps like Tyler Reddick might at one of these races. He's going to be around. I think he's going to secure some decent finishes. I don't believe he qualifies all that well normally. I don't know about these particular places, so that could help with some of those differential points. I'll pick him up. Why not?
I'm going to take him as well. We're going to a super speedway. Austin Dillon performs really well at super speedways. He always has. I'm going to be a little nervous for COTA with Austin Dillon. Before last season, he had never even had a top 15 in a road course race before last year.
Okay.
So yeah, that's stuff to keep in mind for him. But he's starting to have a little bit of a positive outlook at road courses. He started bottling together some good finishes last year. So I'm going to take Austin Dillon for his value.
I like that. Yeah, I'm going to go, decisive with you guys here. I'm going to draft him. Keep with me here, but I kind of see him as like almost like the T. Higgins to, what we're seeing with Tyler Reddick as the Jamar Chase here, kind of relating it back to football terms. Obviously, Tyler Reddick is the guy you want. He's the Jamar Chase. He's the young gun. But Austin Dillon is going to be a model of consistency. He's ran consistent all season long. Would even have a higher average if it wasn't for that last second wreck there by Suarez last week. So, I'm drafting Austin Dillon here. It's not a sexy pick at all, but he's going to get you anywhere from 25 to 40 fantasy points pretty much every week.
All right, so our third driver could be a controversial one, Chase Elliott, the most popular man in NASCAR. Are we going to take him for the Atlanta and COTA swing? Seth, what do you got?
I'm impartial with this one. I think I'm just going to pass, but it's not like a hard pass because obviously he won COTA the last time we were there. So you have to keep that in mind. He's going to be competitive at any road course, especially one that he's won before. However, we got to keep in mind he's not that great at Atlanta. He doesn't have a lot of top 10s there. I think his average finish is around 13. So, but I think the big thing every single week we're seeing it in these DFS lineups. He's overdrafted. He's overdrafted in redrafts in the top round every single time. Sometimes a top 2 or 3 pick. So for that ADP, for that price tag in DFS, I think I have to pass. Of course, you have to throw him into a couple lineups in COTA. But other than that, I'm going to pass for the price.
I'm going to take him. Obviously, he's a road course ace. Over half of his wins have came on a road course. So for COTA, I feel like his outlook is great. Atlanta, Chase has shown that he can lead a lot of laps at super speedways. He may not be there at the very end, but I think that he is going to be very valuable. You might be okay with passing on him, but for me, I'm going to take him every day.
See, I really thought about that too. I was like, how in the world can you pass up on Chase Elliott at road course? I'm going to do it. I'm going to pass on Chase Elliott. Atlanta is just going to be such a wild card with the super speedway aspect. He could be junked 20 laps in for all we know. And this year, there's so many more road course aces, and this car is going to perform so much differently on road courses, supposedly much better on road courses than the old car did. So that could take away some of his advantage. There's a guy in that number 2 car that could take away a lot of his advantage that we've seen run well on road courses. I'll pass on Chase Elliott, and I'll regret it when he ends up in victory lane at COTA, but I'll pass on him for now. All right, so our next segment, kind of a similar deal, but the drivers aren't pre-selected in this case. It's our sleepers and keepers.
That's what we need to do. We need to have like a tent, just post it up in the infield, like cracking back some bush lights. What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, so I did it last summer. It's the best thing in the world. It's incredible. I think every race fan needs to spend one race weekend in the infield.
Yeah, the campgrounds are certainly nice. I don't know how in the world you can sleep with those engines going. I'd never be able to get any sleep there.
So how do you sleep?
Yeah, that's a good point. So how do we want to do this? Do we want to run through everybody's keepers and then everybody's sleepers, or go person by person? Do we have a preference here?
Let's go keeper. Let's go everyone keeper, and then we'll go back through for sleepers.
All right, I like that. So my keeper is going to be Ross Chastain. Whether he's in the keeper or sleeper or in between section is debatable. He's performed well enough this year, and he's set to keep performing well enough. He's my keeper. I've got that much faith in Chastain, as I alluded to in our tire tiers. I think that the only way is up for Ross Chastain. That Trackhouse car is going to be in victory lane sooner rather than later, and Chastain is going to be up there. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I don't know that he's going to have the consistency for a full year. We're not talking about a full year right now. We're talking about the next couple of weeks, and I am riding the wave for Ross Chastain.
You look at all those big DFS lineups right now that are winning these $20,000, $5,000 lineups. They have Ross Chastain in them. They have the last 3 weeks. So yeah, you got to ride it, man.
For me, my keeper, he caused me a little bit of pain on Sunday, but he's had a lot of bad luck. When it comes to consistency, though, he's been that guy, Ryan Blaney. His stats, and I hate to use stats for Atlanta because I know it's a different track, but his stats at Atlanta are incredible. His intermediate stats are incredible, and he has shown that he can be competitive at a road course. For the next couple of weeks, I'm more than comfortable riding with Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know we had a redraft here in one of our fantasy NASCAR leagues last week, and Ryan Blaney was undervalued. He was going, in the first, second round with a keeper. So yeah, I think Ryan Blaney, he's a great person to target, and we know he's going to have a heavy price tag. It's me 10K plus, but I'm willing to pay it here in the next couple of weeks. I agree, Cody.
All right, Seth, who you got as your keeper? I don't think you mentioned.
Elliot, I don't mean to tickle your fancy a little too much here, bud, but I'm going to go Alex Bowman, the showman, baby. Again, I know this is a new track at Atlanta here, but he has 2 top 5s in his last 4 at Atlanta. He got 8th at the last time we've been at COTA as well. So if he can stay out of trouble, he's going to be there at the end. He's going to compete for a top 10, maybe for a win. And that's what I want at the end of the day. And DFS formats are still undervaluing this guy. He's still coming in sub 9K. Not a lot of ownership despite the win a couple weeks ago. So Alex Bowman is someone I am very excited to have in any type of format here over the next 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, I just appreciate somebody else giving Alex Bowman some love other than me. I have those
That's
purple tinted colored glasses on. So good to see. Hey, guys, he really is performing well. It's not just me as a fan who's pushing for him. All right, let's go with sleepers now. Seth, you want to go ahead and roll right in with your sleeper?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of preview this a little bit earlier, guys, but Ty Dillon, I've had him in every DFS lineup so far this season. I haven't won a lot of money, but I've been positive every single week. I've wanted him in redrafts. I haven't been able to get him. But I mean, just the consistency. Average start position of 25, so an opportunity for those diff points, and then average finish of 15. That is better than Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick. A lot of these guys we're talking about, his average finish is better. And then you want to talk about consistency. There's only been 3 drivers who have ran all the laps this season. Cody's boy, Eric Almirola, Jared's boy, Rowdy, and Ty Dillon, baby. Ty Dillon. He has not been
crazy.
Yeah, he's not finished off the lead lap. He has not had a DNF yet. I really think he's going to continue to be undervalued in DFS. You're paying $5,600, $6K at most in DFS. This guy is a smash every single time.
Yeah, Petty GMS, super interesting to see their intriguing performances. Cody, who's your sleeper?
So this one has me a little torn. Depending on the valuation, Chase Briscoe, I feel like is going to be a pretty great sleeper. I assume that we're going to see a big price jack on him though for the next couple of weeks.
Probably, yeah.
So with that being said, I'm going to push him off the table. I'm actually going to say Bubba Wallace is going to be a sleeper. If Atlanta does truly run like a super speedway, you could definitely see Bubba Wallace getting another top 5. 3 of the last 4 super speedways, he's finished second place or first place. So that's a pretty good streak he's riding right now. Bubba's consistently gotten better at road courses, so I could see him providing a little bit of value when it comes to COTA. Something, though, really important to keep in mind with Chase Briscoe, he did start COTA 27th place last year, and he finished all 3 stages in the top 10. So, nice. I mean, if he has a bad qualifying run for COTA, totally would want to plug Chase Briscoe in for that place differential because he seems to get that everywhere he goes when it's a road course.
Yeah, those are both great calls, Cody. Bubba, he actually, remember, if he was leading a couple laps, I think it was at Indianapolis last year, he was leading a little bit. So, yeah, I like Bubba Wallace, man. He's another guy who's just continuing to get undervalued in all leagues right now.
Yeah, my sleeper is another guy who could benefit from this supposed new super speedway that is the new Atlanta. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is my sleeper. I've talked him up before on this show this season. It's really hard to stand out in that Chevy camp with Hendrick and all those guys in there. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. put together some decent performances. We've known for a long time he's a talented driver. I think he could do really well in this Atlanta race, and he's a guy who is going to be relatively lower valued. Maybe not so much bang for your buck as much as you'd want with some of these other guys. I think he's worth a shot to plug in the bottom of some of your lineups.
I hope so, man. I sold the farm for him last week. I had him in a lot of lineups just because he was starting in 37th place. So, you had, and he was the chalk. A lot of people kind of bid on him, and he didn't really pay off that well didn't have a great run here at Phoenix, but if there's a place that I like Ricky Stenhouse, it's these next 2 races. He's been better at road courses last couple of years too, like surprisingly for a guy who wrecks people as much as he does.
Ricky Stenhouse.
Good old Ricky Stenhouse. And that's part of the crazy thing that, I still haven't quite wrapped my head around this entirely, is that these differential points are so important.
Yeah.
You'd almost rather a guy who starts 38th and happens to finish, 10th than a guy who would go out there and lead every single lap in the race. It's wild. Like I saw a stat. I know we don't talk a lot of Xfinity in terms of fantasy, but there's some plays there. And the highest owned guy, I believe this was last week at Phoenix, if not Vegas, one of these last 2 races, the highest owned driver was Anthony Alfredo, because he was starting at the back of the field and he had some consistent runs. Didn't work out. He had mechanical problems and was, many so that bit everybody right in the rear end. But super interesting. That's kind of how the fantasy play is.
I do want to follow that up. I love the Ricky pick. When we talk about weird formatted intermediate tracks, Nashville Super Speedway, Ricky had a pretty dominant car that day and he knew how to run. So I could totally see Ricky going out there and being really, really valuable at Atlanta.
It'll be fun to watch. Well, we've been kind of hinting toward him. Let's go all in. Horizon forecast. Let's look ahead to the next 2 races.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
Shout out, as always, to Ray Dunlap there on that drop.
Yes,
So
sir.
we got Atlanta first up, next on the schedule, newly reconfigured. They tore this place apart and they redid it. And supposedly that, combined with this new package, combined with the next-gen car, people are saying this thing is going to run like a super speedway. I've heard that the double yellow line rule is going to be enforced like it is at Daytona and Talladega. To be honest, even with that knowledge, maybe especially because of that knowledge, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen in Atlanta. Help me out here, guys.
I don't think anybody does, really. They talked to some of the drivers about it, and they've talked to the drivers all week long, and nobody has any idea. And we're really not going to know until we see those cars racing on Saturday.
Yeah.
The trucks, are they going to stay in a pack, or is it going to be traditional intermediate style? It's crazy to think that we're going to have to kind of judge everything based on how the trucks and the Xfinity runs when they're entirely different packages. But one thing to note, they are slimming down the back stretch. They've made the corners way slimmer. Just for reference, the front stretch used to be 55 feet. Now it's going to be 52 feet wide. Back stretch used to be 55 feet wide. Now it is only 42 feet wide. And then the corners are going from 55 feet wide to 40 feet wide. So, we're talking, they have narrowed it a lot. The banking is up from 4 degrees to the transition to 18. And then the banking in the corners is going from 24 to 28. So they are adding some pretty aggressive banking here. I think this is going to run genuinely like a little Dega, mini Dega.
Mini Dega. That's awesome to see too, isn't it? Like Atlanta's kind of been one of the most cookie cutter tracks the last couple of years. So if there was one track that needed to be improved, I think it was Atlanta. So I'm really excited for this one. But as far as predicting a winner, this is one you really want to kind of just spread out your capital as your units as far as you can in your DFS lineups. Throw some bets on some low guys. Get those odds, man. Because I think this is one we might see a first time winner in Atlanta again.
Going to be super interesting. You said it's going to be damn near impossible to pick a winner. I want us all to pick a winner before we get out of here, though. I'm thinking that Bubba Wallace is going to go to victory lane. We've seen nothing but craziness this year. We've seen some guys who we wouldn't expect to be in victory lane and up in victory lane, my driver included in Alex Bowman. I certainly didn't think he'd get a win this early in the year. I think Bubba Wallace takes advantage of this. They're going to go all in on this package, get that win, lock themselves into the playoffs, get that confidence up for 23-11.
I love that pick. That is incredible. I would love to side with you here, but I feel like we've got to keep it decisive. I think Chase Elliott brings that home. Yeah, so when you think of intermediates and ovals, you never think of Chase Elliott winning. He's the road course guy. But I think that Chase is finally going to start to beat off whatever rust is on his steering wheel. And I think we're going to see Chase Elliott lock in his first win of the year.
I like it. I like that. That's definitely not what most people would think. They'd think it'd come at COTA. So I like that call. I'm going to keep with the Hendrick theme here. I'm going to go Alex Bowman, guys. I think he's going to be the first 2-time winner this season. I don't think he's going to dominate this race, but I think he's a guy who's going to hang around, and at the end, we're going to see him compete. And I mean, honestly, when you look at some of these pit crew analytics for the year, Alex Bowman's has been excellent, which is really awesome to see. Despite Elliot, you probably know the struggles they had a couple of years ago with Jimmy Johnson in that crew. So I like Alex Bowman this week.
Man, wouldn't that be fun? But I won't let myself dream too far off there. So then we've got Circuit of the Americas down in Austin, Texas, known as COTA. It's the first road course of the year, first road course in the new cars. And honestly, I'm hoping, as fun as last year's race was, most of that was in an absolute downpour. We saw a lot of crazy things happen and ended up being rain shortened. I think we lost 9 laps off the end or something, which around a track that long is not an insignificant portion. Circuit of the Americas, going to be fun. What do we think about this race?
Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is a guy that I think I'm going to be targeting here. He's gotten consistently better at road courses. As far as the overall race, I kind of like the rain races. I'm not as huge of a hater as everyone else is. I mean, it obviously got pretty out of hand last year, got dangerous down that backstretch, but I think overall, like I like seeing them rip through the rain a little bit. I wouldn't mind if there's a little bit of wetness on the track, but this is a fun track. Like I am just generally, as a fan, if you're new to NASCAR, if you haven't watched the last couple of years, and you know, let's not be boomers here. Let's give this a chance because Circuit of America is really actually a very interesting track.
Real quick, I think part of that with COTA last year, that was the first time they'd run this track in a race. So having to do that and run in the downpour, you could probably see that was tough. It'd be different if there was rain going around Watkins Glen, where I'm sure a lot of these guys could run in their sleep just the same as any oval. It's the fact that COTA was new. I want to see a race where we don't have weather interference.
And COTA is a fast road course. That backstretch at COTA, I mean, they hit 170, 180. So that turn right there coming off of the backstretch, I think it might be turn 12. That they're carrying a lot of speed there. And I mean, we saw it, you know, they're breaking halfway down the backstretch. Cole Custer and Martin Truex got into each other, Bubba and Kevin. Those were some scary crashes. I personally wanted them to call it way beforehand. I'm a Chase Elliott fan, so of course when they called it, I was happy. Yeah. But if they would have called it 20 laps sooner, I wouldn't have been mad because it got way out of hand. Now, as far as who I'm looking at for this race, I think Chase Briscoe goes 2 out of 3. The reason why I say that is, I mean, he has such good road course skill. He starts in the back and he works his way to the front almost every time he's out there, right? Last year we saw it. But this time I think he's going to have a better qualifying run and he's not going to have to work as hard to get up front. And we can use Indy as a great example. He qualified second. Yep. He was going to win that Indy race. They ran him off and like, it was unfortunate. That's racing. It is what it is. Yeah. And I mean, you know, he suffered for it. He made sure Denny didn't win, but I think Chase Briscoe is going to win 2 out of the 3 races in the stretch.
That's a good call. I like that, Cody.
For me, for COTA, this is an absolute slam dunk, and I've brought this factoid up on the show before. Austin Cindric ran part-time last season in these races. He ran the COTA race. The rain started early on, but not early on enough that they started on rain tires. They started on the slicks. Yeah. Everyone pitted for rain tires except Austin Cindric in that 33. And he still led the race on slicks in the rain for quite some time when everyone else was on the rain tires. I think that equal playing field. He's in a full-time car now. This is Austin Cindric's race, 110%. I'm taking it to the bank immediately.
I like it. Everyone's going for like 2-win drivers early. I love it.
I don't hate
a pick or yeah.
Yeah, all right. I dig it, man. The young guys, they're coming out, and I think that's like honestly one of the great things about talking with you guys tonight is like we're fans that are willing to adapt. We're analysts that are willing to adapt to what's happening out there. We're willing to see what's happening on the racetrack. We're also willing to see the talent that's been coming up in NASCAR. And like these next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be on full display.
It's going to be fun to watch. This is probably one of the more interesting 2 race stretches that we've had.
Yes.
I know it's early, but we've got new kind of tracks, and it's going to be fun to watch. Well, before we wrap it up here, let's go into our nice little Backroad Stories section to close us out. So, Seth, I'm figuring it was you who put this in here. What's our topic for the week?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about, for newer fans, for more experienced fans who maybe seen their drivers retire over the last couple of years. As a fan, what are you looking for in a driver when you're going to root for somebody? I know a lot of us here, we don't have really traditional drivers that we follow, but it's really hard to stake that claim in a driver and have faith in them moving forward. So, Cody, I want to start with you, man. What are you looking for in these drivers when you're on a fan basis? Take fantasy out of the equation.
Strictly as a fan, I feel like you want somebody you can relate to, right? And even in professional sports, you always try to find a player that you relate to. If you play point guard in Little League, you're looking at an NBA point guard. You want to be Steph Curry.
Yeah.
If you're a quarterback, you want to be Peyton Manning. For me, what actually brought me back to NASCAR, because when Carl retired, I was done. I didn't care anymore. Was Bubba Wallace's interview during the All-Star race, where he was very transparent about his struggles with anxiety and depression. And that right there immediately gravitated me towards Bubba. That was something I could relate to on a personal level. And that right there is why I became a NASCAR fan all over again, was because I finally had a driver that I could relate to again. So I've been, on the Bubba train ever since. And it doesn't matter if he finishes dead last every single week, I'm still going to ride the Bubba train.
That's awesome, man. I agree. Bubba Wallace has had some incredibly powerful moments in this sport over the last 4 or 5 years. And honestly, man, to hear that, like, thank you for sharing that. Like, that is amazing. Like, that is honestly one of the best things I've heard on this show since we've been doing this last year. Like, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more, man. We all do really root for people that we can relate to. And I'm glad you can relate to Bubba, man.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I think he's impacted the sport in the most positive way possible. Like, from the time he stepped in to today, I think for Bubba, NASCAR is in a much better place. Not to be controversial with anything, I think everything that Bubba stood up for, he's given people a voice who's never had a voice in NASCAR before. How can you not support that? So like I said, that I wanted to relate to somebody, and Bubba was that guy.
Couldn't agree more.
Elliot, what about you, man? Like when you're looking for a driver, what are you looking for? Characteristics, driver skills, anything like that?
Right. Well, I'm the only one of us three who's got a traditional favorite driver. And, I was first driven to Alex Bowman because he was in the 88 car, and I was rooting for the guy in the 88 car who retired. I figured, well, I'm just going to stick with this guy. But I'll start with the fact that he's an underdog story. Very rarely do you see the guys who are in the absolute back markers of the Cup Series. He was with a team called BK Racing. Yeah. New fans of the sport probably have never heard of. That's because it crashed and burned because they ran out of money, were involved in a bunch of lawsuits and things like that. He raced for BK Racing and Tommy Baldwin Racing, where he learned that he got fired from that ride over Twitter.
Yeah.
So, the underdog story, very rarely do those guys get into top-level rides, and Bowman got that chance. He did well in relief for Dale Jr. in 2016. They brought him on. He sat back for all of 2017, only ran in a few different races, ended up getting that win at Charlotte in an Xfinity race. And so, I've been on board with Bowman ever since. Another thing that he really plays up his awkwardness. I've been the awkward guy at a party before, and he's that kind of dude. He and Greg Ives are supposedly the two most awkward guys in the garage, as they call it. So there's that. And also something that Bowman has really stuck on in the last couple of years that has also been part of my development over the last couple of years is working with animal shelters and with this Best Friends charity that they're donating money in every market for every race for that. And I wasn't a big animal person until I got a dog a few years ago. Now I'm all in with that. He's got his 2 dogs that he shares all over social media. This dude's just a genuine dude. And, I've become a guy who pulled for Alex Bowman just because he was in Dale Jr.'s car to a guy who now pulls for Alex Bowman.
Dude, that's incredible.
Respect.
I'll say this, and I remember, I actually had a discussion with a work colleague a couple years ago, and they said they were Dale Jr. fans and they root for Chase because Bowman couldn't replace Dale Jr. And I completely understand that Bowman doesn't have the biggest personality, but it's like you said, Elliot, he is a genuine guy. He's an underdog story. And I can even remember when we first started playing fantasy NASCAR, 2015, 2016, we had a nickname we still have nickname for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ricky Stenhouse out there, Ricky Spinhouse, whatever you want to call it. But Alex Bowman was Alex Blowman, and it wasn't because he was a bad driver, but it was just the level of competition versus his equipment was not equal. And he's done nothing but show strides here in the Hendricks organization. So I love that, man. That's a great story there, Elliot.
Thanks. All right, Seth, I didn't know if you had anything else particular you wanted to share. That's why I kind of.
Yeah, no, I'll just round it out here. Like, I don't have a traditional favorite driver anymore either. Jeff Gordon was kind of my guy, kind of like a Cody situation when he retired. Couldn't really gravitate towards anyone. Lately, the last couple of years, it was really during that Xfinity stint in 2020. There wasn't a lot to watch. I really started rooting for Ross Chastain, man. And like even seeing it in that last interview here this weekend, he was so excited that he just got second. I mean, and talk about an underdog story. This guy he's been competing for 30th place with Corey LaJoie for the last, 5-6 years in NASCAR. And he finally gets into a top level Xfinity rides. Show he is actually a really good wheelman. And now he finally has good equipment in the Cup Series and he's making the most of it. And Elliot, last season, we talked a lot about Ross Chastain in the sleepers and keepers segment. He was always my sleeper or my keeper, whatever you wanted to say. He ran fast, he ran hard, and just a genuine dude. Like he's not a huge personality. He doesn't like command the microphone like a guy like Rowdy or, Ryan Blaney that, it's just star power. But he's a guy who's genuine. You relate to him and is a guy who, I feel a little bit of an underdog myself in a way. I love Ross Chastain. So I agree with what you guys said. It's someone you can find relatability in, someone you can find likeness in that way. So I think you guys did a wonderful job with that.
No, you as well. I mean, who doesn't love watermelon, right? Yeah. I mean, I think everybody in NASCAR collectively wants to see Ross smash a watermelon.
Yeah,
at the highest level of them all.
Yes, absolutely.
It's coming sooner rather than later for sure for Chastain. All right, well, this has been fun. We'll round it out here. Cody, thanks again for joining us. You got anything you want to plug over there at Natter Day Delight over there on your socials and what you got going on?
So you can find me on Twitter at Natter Day Delight. Also my podcast. We are not fantasy gurus at all. So if that's what you're here for, stay here. If you want to hear just total fans giving bad takes constantly, check out our podcast. We're usually live on Monday nights, way later than anybody else is even up. But you could go back and rewatch some of our stuff. Like I said, we just give really spicy, terrible takes. If you want to make money, do not listen to us.
I love it, Cody.
That's what we're here for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Seth, anything interesting coming down the pipe with In Between Media?
Yeah, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Cody and the Left Turn Call. I mean, these guys are changing the racing media scape. I honestly think they're one of the big things coming up. Their personalities, they're genuine to who they are, and they're entertaining to watch. If I honestly want to watch a NASCAR program, I go to you guys now. So congratulations on
that means a lot. Wow, thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great, man. I love the whole gang, Jacob, Coop, all you guys over there. You guys do a great job. As far as In Between Media, guys, the first thing you can do to support us here, everything we have going on, fantasy football, feel good lifestyle advice, fantasy NASCAR, fantasy golf advice, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That really does help us in so many ways. So if you're here watching now, please smash that subscribe button. It will let you know when we go live for this show, the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. Right now, we are absolutely packed, guys, In Between Media. We have columns coming out every week. We have a new cooking show on the horizon. We have a new music show on the horizon. We got this show. We got our In Between Fantasy Football podcast. So much more than just fantasy sports here. We love helping people win fantasy football championships, winning a little cash as well in DFS. But at the end of the day, guys, we want you to enjoy your life. We want you to have fun doing what you're doing out there. So that's what we're about here. You know where to follow me. I'm @between_SethFF on Twitter. Elliot is graciously at ehicks39 on Twitter as well. And shout out to Elliot, man. Like, this guy comes in here every single week. He carries our fantasy NASCAR program here at In Between Media. He has for the last 2 years. So Elliot, shout out to you, man. Everything you've been doing here at In Between Media, and just thankful for this audience, man. Love the In Between family, everyone. If you want to interact more with us, we have our In Between family. You guys can head over to our Patreon page. You can jump in our Discord for free right now. Come interact with us. We got great advice for you directly to you.
Seth, I definitely appreciate the sentiment, but we couldn't do any of this without you and your leadership at In Between Media. Certainly grateful for it and certainly grateful to continue the upswing. What we're most grateful for, as Seth said, is you, the audience. Thanks again for rolling on down the back road with us this week. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Best of luck with your fantasy lineups, and we'll see you next time here on the Back Road.
Boogie, 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 boys.